Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Terry Baker, and I am the Indianapolis Prize Program Manager. We are excited to have you here today, launching the inaugural Indianapolis Prize Book Club, featuring a conversation with Dr. Pat Wright, winner of the 2014 Indianapolis Prize and author of the book For the Love of Lemurs. For those of you who are not familiar with the Indianapolis Prize, it is known as the world's leading award for animal conservation and is the global conservation initiative of the Indianapolis Zoo. The prize recognizes and rewards conservationists who have achieved major victories in advancing the sustainability of animal species. Every other year, the prize recognizes 5 finalists and 1 winner for their work protecting endangered wildlife around the globe. And the finalists and winner are celebrated at the Indianapolis Prize Gala, which is a black tie celebration held here in downtown Indianapolis. And they also participate in a series of events surrounding the gala. I would like to point out that these events that were originally scheduled for this upcoming September have been postponed to 2021 due to the current situation. And this is important because I wanted to let you all know that Pat will be here to celebrate the 2020 prize winner, seahorse expert Dr. Amanda Vinson, and you can meet both of them and the 2020 finalists and get your book signed at Meet a Hero, which takes place at the Indianapolis Zoo on September 25th, 2021. More information can be found about this event on the Indianapolis Prize website, indianapolisprize.org. So because most prize events take place when the prize honorees are here in Indianapolis, we're really excited to have you here participating in today's event because it gives us the opportunity to expand prize events throughout the year. And we hope individuals like you enjoy getting to know our prize honorees like Pat and their work a little more and hopefully take advantage of meeting them when they're here in town. One quick housekeeping note before we get started. There is a chat column on the right side of your screen. Please use this to ask your questions and we will do our best to answer as many as we can. And on that note, it is my pleasure to introduce our interviewer and generous sponsor of Meet a Hero and the individual who inspired the creation of the Indianapolis Prize Book Club, Christa Adkins. Christa serves on the Indianapolis Zoo's Board of Trustees. She's a lawyer practicing in the areas of commercial transactions and corporate governance. She also serves as a trustee for the Nature Conservancy of Indiana and is a trustee and active volunteer at the Orchard School. Christa is passionate about conservation and enjoys hiking, camping, cycling, running, skiing, travel, observing wildlife, watching documentary films, and spending time with her family. She and her husband, Chris, live in Fishers, Indiana with their young son. Welcome, Christa.
Thank you, Terry. It's such a pleasure and a privilege to be able to participate in this event with the Indianapolis Prize and especially with Dr. Patricia Wright. And I'm so pleased, Dr. Wright, to be able to introduce you. And for those who are not familiar with her background, Dr. Wright is a distinguished service professor in the Department of Anthropology and holds the Hermstein Chair in Conservation Biology at Stony Brook University in New York. She has been the founder and executive director for the Institute for the Conservation of Tropical Environments, the ICTE, since 1992 and founded the Centro Valbaio Research Station in Madagascar in 2002. She studied non-human primates in South America, Asia, and Madagascar. Her research interests include conservation biology, behavior, and ecology, the evolution of tropical biodiversity, biodiversity conservation, and climate change in the tropics. In 1986, Dr. Wright and colleagues discovered a new species of lemur, the golden bamboo lemur. When this rainforest and the future of this new species were threatened by timber exploitation, Dr. Wright's attention turned to conservation. Patricia Wright spearheaded an integrated conservation and development project at Ranamafana that focused on the conservation of biodiversity as well as rural development, education, and human health in the park's peripheral zone. In 1991, the Ranamafana National Park was inaugurated. Dr. Wright is a John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation Fellow, and in 1995, she was awarded 3 Medals of Honor from the government of Madagascar. She is an American Association for the Advancement of Sciences Fellow and was elected to the American Philosophical Society. She has received numerous honorary degrees and awards, including the Hauptmann Woodward Pioneer in Science Award in 2007, the Distinguished Primatologist Award in 2008, and the Indianapolis Prize for Animal Conservation in 2014. Dr. Wright has co-authored 5 books, including High Moon Over the Amazon, My Quest to Understand the Monkeys of the Night, and For the Love of Lemurs, My Life in the Wilds of Madagascar, which is the book that she's here to discuss with us today. Dr. Wright, welcome, and thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. It's a real privilege to be here.
So before we launch into the book, I'm curious, where are you speaking with us from today?
Actually, I'm in Rhode Island on an organic farm, which is run by my husband. And there's no lemurs here. I'd rather be in Madagascar because that's where I usually am in June, July, and August, and most of the fall. But the airport is closed because of the situation with the coronavirus. So I'm here instead.
Well, I think many of us are finding that we're in places we didn't expect to be for the last few months. And it's funny, I read both your High Moon Over the Amazon book in addition to the one that we're here to discuss today. And I remember you telling about how your first monkey kind of ruled the household. I'm learning that's true of my dogs. So I'll apologize to all of you in advance if they make an unexpected appearance in our conversation. But Pat, I'm interested if you would share with us how you became a scientist, because your path is perhaps not a conventional one for people who do what you do.
Well, I've always loved animals since the time I was like 2 years old, but I never thought that I could really make a career out of loving animals. I was a biology major, but when I got out of university, I realized that you couldn't make a living in biology without going farther on in school. And I thought I wasn't ready for that. And so instead I looked around for a job that could support me and my new husband. And it was a job in social work. So I was in New York City working as a social worker for my first experience. And I never thought that I would ever be in Madagascar. I didn't even know what Madagascar was. I did know about primates, and I knew about Jane Goodall and her work with chimps, but I didn't think that I could do something like that.
So how is it that you first started on your journey from social worker to primatologist?
Well, it was sort of an accident. I was going to this is the 60s in New York, and I was going to a Jimi Hendrix concert, actually, when I got there early and I walked across the street. My husband and I looked at something that we had seen before but hadn't gone in, and it was a pet store. And once I got into the pet store, I fell in love with a monkey. I know we're not supposed to purchase monkeys, and I would never do it now, but I didn't know any better, and I just fell in love, and and he became a member of our family, and that led me to questions and questions, because I am a scientist, and the questions never stop. So we started asking questions about, what is this? It was a nocturnal monkey. Nobody had ever studied a nocturnal monkey. It was from the Amazon. And I wanted to know all about it, its social system, why it did what it did. And so that started me on the career of primatology. But I didn't have a degree, and I tried to get a grant to go down to South America to study these animals, but nobody would give me a grant. Jane Goodall didn't answer my letter, and the National Geographic said that they didn't give grants to people that didn't have a PhD. So I went down and did that study, and then when I got back, I decided I better go to graduate school. So that's how it got launched.
And Pat, at the time that you started graduate school, you had a young daughter, Amanda, and you were also in your 30s. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, Amanda was born before I actually went to graduate school, so she was part of my graduate school career. And I guess my words to everyone out there who thinks it's very difficult to get a PhD when you have a little girl or a little boy, it is. Indeed it is, but certainly not impossible. And the school, and we also went to the Amazon together to do my dissertation research. We found out all about those night monkeys. There were a lot of adventures out there. I just want to tell you, because you may wonder by now, she is alive and well, my daughter who went to the Amazon with me, and she herself has 2 children and a great husband, and so they're now living on Cape Cod.
Wonderful. And we'd love to hear a little more about them perhaps later in the conversation. But I'm curious, how did you get from doing your dissertation research in the Amazon to then building a life and a career working in Madagascar?
Well, again, life can be very serendipitous. I received a phone call while I was writing my dissertation from somebody who turned out to be the director of the Duke in North Carolina at Duke. And he said that he really needed me to come and be a postdoc for him because he had this grant about tarsiers. That's how I got to Borneo. He wanted me to go and collect those tarsiers, bring them back to Duke, and so we would have a captive colony of them. And I just said, I just started to write my dissertation. I don't think my advisor will allow me to go to Duke. And of course, my advisor said, Duke's a beautiful university, fantastic. It's a great opportunity. Go, and you can work for him and finish your dissertation. And so that's how I got to Duke, and that's how I began to appreciate how wonderful lemurs are, because Duke had the only collections of lemurs in all the United States at the time. And Madagascar was tight as a drum, closed and locked when I started to go to Duke University. Nobody was allowed in from the Western world. And so it was a surprise when Dr. Simon said to me after I brought back the tarsiers, well, how about next you go to Madagascar? And I said, and he said, you know where Madagascar is? I said, of course I know where Madagascar is. And I'd love to go to Madagascar, but I thought it was unavailable to research scientists and tourists. And he said, no, they're just starting to open up. And I have the authorization to go in. So that's how I started. And I went there to look for an animal that he thought, and everybody thought, was extinct. And my job was to go to the places where it was last seen and to find out whether or not I could find it alive. But there were many things that they didn't tell me then, like that there were no cars in Madagascar at that time, that there were roads had all decayed. So finding that lemur was quite an adventure. And instead of first finding the greater bamboo lemur, which I thought I was going to find, when I got to Ranamafan and walked into the forest in Ranamafan, I found something I had never thought was possible. That is a brand new species of lemur, a brand new species to science. I was stunned, and I'm still stunned. I look at it today, it's a beautiful animal, and I think, wow, this was unknown before I arrived here. We called it the golden bamboo lemur because of its beautiful kind of orangey gold color. And then we found the greater bamboo lemur. So we actually found both species in the same place. So that instigated a research project. What are these animals doing being able to exist in the same place, because usually such closely related animals are found in different areas. And so I was very busy writing my proposals, because you always have to find money, and also really studying these animals, trying to tame them down so you could watch them. And while I was doing that, suddenly I heard it was a big noise. The forest was just like a thunderbolt. And it was a tree going down, a giant tree, and that tree was taking 9 trees with it. And I suddenly realized that we were under attack. There were like hundreds of timber exploiters that had just arrived in this forest. And I tried to stop them, of course, because, and then I realized I didn't speak Malagasy at the time. I realized that I had to go higher up. So I went to Tana, that's the capital of Madagascar. And I talked to the head of the Department of Water and Forest. And I explained to him that, that there was a new species to science in this forest, and there was a species that we thought was extinct, and there were 13 other species of wonderful lemurs inside this rainforest, and that he couldn't just destroy that rainforest because it was needed to be saved. And he looked at me and he sighed and he said, I think you're right. If we had species, I think we should protect that forest. But this is Madagascar. We have no money to protect the forest. You need to make maps, you need to train rangers, you need to make infrastructure. We have no money to make a national park. But if you, Madame Patricia, if you find the money, we will help you in every way we can. And then he ushered me out the door. And at first, as I stood there, I thought, he said yes. He said he would make the national park. And then I thought, oh no, I can't get $1 million, $2 million to make a national park. I've never raised money like that. I don't know anything about making a national park. And I'll never get tenure if I devote all my time to doing things like that, because as an academic, of course, you're supposed to get publications out. You're not supposed to be establishing national parks. And then I stood there and realized that to me, if that beautiful new species, or that one that we discovered that used to be, we thought extinct, if those species disappeared from this earth and went extinct, I couldn't live with myself. And to think that that's what was going to happen if I didn't make that national park. That was the pivotal moment when I became a conservationist, because I had to protect those beautiful lemurs. And so the rest of my life has been protecting those lemurs and all the other species too. I'm glad I made that decision. Yes, I did get tenure. I got tenure at Duke. I got tenure at Stony Brook. We have a national park. It was established in 1991, and it's a beautiful place. And I hope that all of you will be able to come and visit it as soon as this virus kind of gives us a chance.
Pat, that would be a pleasure and a privilege, but I'm interested in that moment where you said that you became a fundraiser and a conservationist. And I'm curious what that means to you to be a conservationist versus a scientist, but how it also relates to your work as a scientist.
Yes, it should never be considered versus. And that's what I didn't realize at that moment, until maybe that moment or after that. Well, it should never be versus, because part of conservation is knowing about what you're preserving. And so research science, I think, is a very important part of conservation. And I think that you can't really adequately protect something you don't know about. And there's so much to learn about, especially in Madagascar, which, this island that was isolated for 100 million years as some of the most incredible species that, you just can't believe that they're alive today. And so, yes, I think being a conservationist means you're protecting. You're protecting and preserving for all of humankind into the future, animals and plants and habitats, basically. And the protection requires a little bit more than putting a fence around the place, which is what they were doing when I started a long time ago. But we were one of the first projects to include the communities because, it's a big national park. And, it's very important that the communities that surround it help protect it. So in order for them to get on board to really appreciate that park was quite an interesting challenge, shall we say. First of all, I went around and I visited all the people and then asked them what they really needed. And they, of exchange of, like in your backyard as a national park, what would make your life better so that you would help to protect it? And they said, it's a very poor country. It was at that time the third poorest in the world. And they said, schools. They said, healthcare. They said, economic opportunities. And then they said, a soccer ball. They didn't even have any soccer balls. And it's really hard to play soccer with, a bunch of vines or rags entwined into a ball. So that was that was my challenge. Could I get education and health and economic opportunity and soccer ball out to all these remote villages? Now, these remote villages were a 2-day walk from the main highway. It was to write to USAID, to meet with USAID. And USAID gave us the basic foundation money for this park. But I wrote that grant in 1987. I didn't get the money until August 10th, 1990, where the park was established. And all during that time, I was still in the back of my head realizing the villagers had asked for these 4 things, and what was I doing about it? USAID said that they would help with the economic opportunities in the agriculture, but they would not at that time. They weren't going to help with education or health. That wasn't their mandate for Madagascar. So then I learned a good lesson. I learned that if you're going to do an integrated project like I perceived, that I thought was necessary, the villagers thought were necessary, I had to go to more than one funder. So we went to Liz Claiborne and Art Ortenberg, and they gave about $500,000 to help with the education. And then we went to the MacArthur, and they gave, this time I was a MacArthur Fellow, and so they gave me an additional grant to help with the health. And Fulbright helped a little bit with the health. There was this parasitology student who wanted to help with our health team. And so I learned that it's like a jigsaw puzzle of funders, that everybody can fund a piece, but it seemed like no organization could fund the whole thing. So it was a big project. And so we eventually...
Is that
yes.
patchwork aspect of the grants that you're describing something that continues to occupy a lot of your time and thought today as you continue in your conservation work?
It certainly does. I mean, it's so important to have the funds to make all these people's dreams come true. And I guess the lemurs too, but I don't know what they dream. So what I've been doing ever since that time is trying to put together to keep the programs going and to expand the programs. And I'll tell you, when I got that Indianapolis prize, that was a big boost. I don't know whether you all appreciate how much your prize does for conservation, because not only do you have the funding to do some of the things that need to be done, but that is a incentive for others to give. It gives you a kind of credibility. And so it really has added a lot to our project. And I'm so grateful to the Indianapolis Zoo and for the Indianapolis Prize. It's been a few years now, and it just the advantages just keep increasing, and I really thank you all.
Well, that is wonderful to hear. And Pat, you kind of glossed over the process of creating that park and getting the community buy-in for it. But I would love if you would expand a little on that process, because I know from the book you said you met with each of the leaders of 57 villages surrounding the proposed perimeter of the park. And at that, you mentioned Madagascar was the third poorest economy in the world, exposed to tourism. It was only open to a few academic researchers, such as yourself, came. So I'm assuming that those people living in the villages weren't familiar with being visited by people such as yourself. So curious what benefit you found that your background as a social worker has provided as you've gone through that process in your continuing work.
It was amazing, actually, to go around to those 57 villagers because, you know, it wasn't just me. It was the Department of Water and Forest, and it was what's a couple of the guides that I had first met in Radamafan. And all of a sudden, we would kind of pop out of the rainforest, and the people would be, the kids were terrified. They just ran away from us and hid in the bushes. Because when they went to sleep every night, their parents would say, go to sleep right now, or else white people will come and eat you. I had no idea that there was this going on, but I knew that those kids were really scared of me when they saw me. And so finally, we got them to, you know, gather together, and they realized that we weren't there to attack. We were there to talk and collaborate. So it was very important to make friends with them. And I think until we were there, had come back 3 times. They didn't really take us seriously until we started. You know, the second time I brought the soccer ball, so they knew that I was listening anyway. And then we started to build the schools, and then we started to work with them on and the health team started to come out with medicines. And it was, and some of those people that I met so long ago are still alive, and they remember that. It's interesting. But all the things that I learned as a social worker, because I come from upstate New York near Rochester, and I had never been to the big city like Brooklyn before I got this job there. And when I had this job and went to the what we call ghettos in those days of Brooklyn, it isn't like that anymore. But I went to visit the people, and I realized that the concept I had of poor people was actually quite wrong. Because poor people are people that are poor. That's all. And that if they're with a certain amount of help and assistance, they can make a much better use of their lives. And that's one of the things as part of the Great Society I had the opportunity to do. And so here I was in Madagascar suddenly. Here were poor people, but I knew that they were just people that were poor. And since that time, we have seen the incredible potential of the people in that region. I mean, for me, I hired some of my first guides where like they had 3 years of education, you know, 3rd grade. And now, I mean, one of the proudest things I am of is that these kids of these guides are now finishing college. And some of them, in fact, we have 3 PhD students from the children of the guides who had no education whatsoever, but they were smart. And they learned that education is a good thing for their kids. So we started, you know, piecing together all these little pieces of funding and projects, and I got good people, Malagasy people. I got people from the outside to help. It was really a family affair where we slowly built and built and built until we have the incredible project that we have today. And, you know, I have about 133 staff that work for the Central Bio for this research station. And it's not just working on research, it's also working with health, education, environmental arts, reforestation. It's really a very big project. And I think part of why we've been so successful is that we've always let people do what they do best and do it well and take pride in it and keep working hard. And all of us have. And even in this coronavirus, which is such a tragedy for the world, it's a global tragedy. We in Madagascar are taking on that challenge and doing everything we can to come out as well as we can at the end. And that's all any of us can do.
So this is a great time to bring a question that one of the readers submitted in advance. And the question is, the way you write out the Malagasy people, it feels like you love them as much as the lemurs. Do you? And was that a driving force in your motivation to establish the Ranamafana National Park?
Yes, I do. I love them both. And I think from the very beginning, when I would go out to those villages and see how hard these people worked and how really wonderful they were. They're very, very hardworking, friendly, nonviolent people, the Malagasy. And then I learned that we could form a team and work together. I think I have very good friends in Madagascar, and I'm hoping that they feel that I'm their good friend too. And we have a terrible issue of protecting these lemurs that are so critically endangered, and also making sure that the people can make a living. So it's a challenge that we can work on together. And the way to make this a work is to communicate, to talk to each other, to actually, when those teams go out and walk 2 days to see some of these villages and talk to them, I mean, they're putting out a lot of effort, and they're really good friends, and they know that they are good friends. And what we do is we also try to hire out of those villages. So many of the people that work for us now are from those remote villages and their children. And now we even have some grandchildren that are working for us. We are expanding as much as we can to make this area better. And one of the things that I told them about in 1991, I remember telling about the fact that there will be tourists. There'll be people from the international community that will come to Madagascar to see the lemurs. And nobody believed me. They laughed. Oh my goodness, they laughed. I said, really? And they said, no, why don't you just see the lemurs that you have at home? And I said, no. There are no lemurs anywhere in the world except in Madagascar. So they're going to come. They're going to come. Well, there were about 5 in 1992, I think, and maybe about 30 by 1995. But in 2019, there were 45,000 tourists from something like 25 different countries from all over the world that came to see those lemurs. And of course, tourism brings with it hotels, but we only have small hotels owned by the community. We have very good high quality hotels and good restaurants. And then the women could now make their handicrafts and sell their handicrafts in stores. And so everybody, and the tourist guides are probably the wealthiest people in town. And if you're asking any kid what he wants to be when he grows up, he'll either say a tourist guide or a research scientist. Won't even say a teacher. He'll say, I want to be a research scientist when I grow up, or as a research scientist assistant. So we were doing so well in this region. We were bringing in pretty close to $4 million. And I was very proud of that. In addition to having all these kids doing so well and getting their degrees, everything was going fine in 2019. And then came 2020. And the tour stopped. March 20th, the last plane left Madagascar. I was on it, and no planes came in. So that means from all those tourists to no jobs, no researchers, no study abroad. And it was so sad to think of that everybody was not going to come back. And all that economic stream, all that money that was going to be coming in to support the villagers was not going to happen. So that's one problem. And then, of course, there's also the virus itself. Now, the virus itself has been contained so far in Tana and in Tamatov. That's a port city. And a ship came in and brought some more in. But we're just kind of, it's very difficult because we don't know when it's going to come and we don't know what's going to happen. So what we decided is we would make lemonade out of lemons. And we put everybody to work and we organized people, the research station itself, organized all their team. We purchased cloth and we made 10,000 masks. And then we made soap so people could wash their hands. And then we worked with the communities, like we had meetings every single day of what we could do to help. And we've been doing that for the last couple of the onslaught that we feel is going to come, but we don't know when. We also have,
and Pat, I know from your book that this is. Oh, sorry, I'm getting a little feedback, but I know this isn't the first time that you've had to survive something such as this. I know in 2009, you wrote that there was a political coup that caused tourism and research to cease for a period of time. And at that time, you had an 85-person staff and 57 village tourist guides. And your comment in the book was that your close relationship with local leaders gave you a strong position and the timber exploiters were kept away. Is that the case still today? And are you hopeful that that will remain true in the future?
This is my biggest fear, of course, is that people will get hungry and then they will start going back into the forest to get the things that they need, like food. So one of the problems in Madagascar is slash and burn agriculture. The other is, of course, hunting lemurs. And this whole population has been working together not to do that. But it depends upon how long this problem lasts. And I am very afraid. And we're doing everything we can to help them out now in this period of time. I made a plea for everybody to give funding to help with not only our staff and the tourist guides, but also just the communities in general. And so we're working very hard. I think if we could raise the funds to get through this year, I think everything will be fine. But we're still fundraising.
Well, I know the theme of friendship and diplomacy was very prominent in your book, and it's woven throughout your career. And I'm interested, how important do you feel diplomacy is to effective conservation work?
Actually, everybody should have a degree in diplomacy before you go out and do conservation. But of course, I didn't have anything like that. It would be great if we offered some courses in conservation diplomacy and negotiation. I did a workshop at Harvard a couple years ago to talk to the law students and the ecologists about what it's like to do things internationally and to actually learn skills that would be useful for diplomacy. Because you do. Diplomacy is negotiation. It's a back and forth. It's not telling you what to do. And I think a lot of conservation in the 80s and 70s was telling you what to do, telling people what to do. What we do is we say, okay, there's a problem. It's a problem for both the lemurs and for you. Let's figure out how to solve this problem. Any suggestions? And I think part of what my value was that I didn't have any idea what I was doing when I started. But I think part of what I'd like young people to do that are going out there to do conservation is to actually take a course in negotiation, work a little bit with diplomacy, realize that your science is not the only thing that's going to get you a degree when you're out there in the wilds of Borneo or Madagascar or the Amazon. You do have to realize that you're not just a scientist alone out there. You are always going to be working in a community. And also, I'm just working with the governments. I've had to work at the highest levels, and I've had to work at the middle levels, the regional levels, and also with the communities. So we can't ignore any of those aspects. So it requires a lot of time. One of the reasons I established my organization was so that I could help my graduate students so they wouldn't have to spend quite so much time doing the diplomacy. I could do that for them. But then I realized, no, they have to learn how to do that too. So we teach a little bit of diplomacy now. It's amazing to work in the tropics. That's where most of the biodiversity is, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful to work in any of the rainforests in the world. They're under threat. We all know that. We've heard about the Amazon. I think you hear about it, but you don't till you like smell it and feel it. I don't think you can really appreciate how sad it is and how it's the lungs of the planet. You know, those rainforests, you know, we all need rainforest and those beautiful animals and how they interrelate. And I think we've done a good job of explaining that, you know, there's medicines in the rainforest and there's all this biodiversity which we can get value from. You know, people are so selfish. They always have to see value in something. But I think that the most important thing that probably people could do is to go and see it for themselves. Because then once you've been in a rainforest, you realize how we can't just burn it all down. I mean, that would just be a travesty. And as I said, they're the lungs of our planet.
Krista, I just wanted to let you know we are at the 15-minute mark. So, Krista, I did mark some questions that were asked for you during the live event.
Okay, wonderful. Before we move to the new questions, Pat, one question that came in from a reader in advance is the following. You've eaten some interesting things in the face of diplomacy, i.e. zebu, liver, heart, hump, and testes. What was the hardest thing for you to eat, and did you ever get sick?
That's really interesting. Did I ever get sick? You know, I never really got sick. There were a couple times when I was feeling queasy, but I never got, you know, what I could consider really sick. I think the worst thing that I ate was the hump of the zebu. When the hump of the zebu is all fat, right? That's where they store their fat. But the whole thing was that there was hair on the hump. And so you're kind of eating this really bristly cow hair and just a big hunk of fat. That was a little hard for me to get down. But I knew I had to because the village elders thought that this was a real privilege to be able to have it. Because, you know, when you're starving to death, this is like a delicacy.
And how were the locusts? I understand you ate fried locusts as well.
I did that when I was negotiating with cattle rustlers, and I ate, and I can't say they were delicious. They were definitely crunchy, but I got those down too. They're sort of like they were a lot like eating the beetle larva, but the beetle larva didn't have the crunch.
Well, in your book, you also describe some very interesting walks through the rainforest that resulted in having leeches rain down upon you. So I hope one day to visit Madagascar, but I'm curious if you can tell us a little more about exactly how big of a problem the leeches really are and how you dealt with them and still do when you're in the rainforest.
Yes, there are times of year when the leeches are just, like rain. I mean, it's really true. They get on, they could just come down. They're all in your hair and in your face and all over your body, and you're picking them off as quickly as you can. Yeah, but that's only in the rainy season. So if you don't come in February, you're probably fairly safe. When it rains, the leeches come out, but usually it's just one or two. And what we found is, as we're doing exploration, that actually when you have a lot of leeches, you also have a lot of biodiversity. So they're kind of a biodiversity indicator. But if you're going to Madagascar in April to December, you probably won't run into leeches very often. They're small, they're not big. They're about an inch long.
One more question about a follow-up to the book, and then perhaps we can move to some other questions that are a little more forward-looking. But we're curious, in the 4 years since the book was published, did you ever come across the Rano Ambi bee, the something big?
Oh, no, yes, I'm still looking for that one. No, we haven't found it yet. I was thinking about actually taking a National Geographic expedition out there, because we haven't gone back to the place where I think it's going to be. I think that there is still one more place, and I really want to go out there, and it's far, so it's going to be a major expedition if we do go. I've heard rumors still, and it's just extremely intriguing, but I got to get back there to that last final trip to make sure that they're not there. You can see it if you look at Google Earth, there's a place where well, I shouldn't tell you or else you'll get there first.
Well, perhaps a future book once you discover it. But in the meantime, we're curious what new projects you're working on.
Oh my goodness. We have so many new projects. I got to get back there. All right. So we just got a Rainforest Trust grant to help with the new protected area in Ivatu. And that's the place where we found a group of three groups of greater bamboo lemurs. Remember, that's the one that I thought was nearly extinct. But in this remote area, we found three groups, and each group was like 50. It was like really big groups. And when we got there, the villagers who had actually not killed them were saying, they're eating our crops. They're eating our crops. Please, can you take them away? Maybe somewhere else. And we and so we said yes, and we started working with them. We taught them about reforestation because they had destroyed so much of their forest, and we taught them about fouling lemurs, and we worked on trying to get this a protected area. So that's one of our projects. We just got the grant to work on it. We're going to transfer. We also have permission to transfer those lemurs into the national park. So that's a big project that we're working on. We've already captured them. They got radio collars. And the next project is, I can't believe it, I found a new rainforest that has not been discovered by Western scientists. And it's been just it's in the middle of Madagascar, where if you look at a vegetation map of Madagascar, it's like a totally devastated wasteland in the center of Madagascar. And we found a forest, and it has lemurs in it, and it has new species of lemurs, new species of frogs, new species of chameleons. It's just a beautiful rainforest in a place we didn't suspect it. And so we're writing about that and studying all the animals inside that. And then we're still ready to, the paper came out about the fossils. Remember, there was that last chapter where I was talking about digging 15 meters down with 15 men for 15 days. Well, that paper just came out in Science. So that was last year. And so now we're trying to get a grant to do some archaeology there, because those early people, I mean, who were those early people that were there 10,000 years ago? Where did they come from? Africa, I assume, but we don't know. And until we find some artifacts, and until we find some, maybe a bone or two, we'll never know. So we have to go back there and do that too. So we have a new project in Ile Saint-Marie, which is an island off of Madagascar. We've got to go there and do some biodiversity exploration. It's an island that's a tourist island. I didn't think there was any forest there, but there is, and we need to help protect that. And so yeah, there's so much to do. I mean, there really is. I just killing me that it's so hard that we can't go back right now. But we're getting a lot of back data analyzed, and we're doing a lot of projects that probably wouldn't get done. We're, archiving all those photos. We're getting a lot of things, a lot of grants written, and doing a lot of fundraising.
A question that has come in through the chat. Dr. Wright, have you found that all the work you did with the tribes and community will continue to support and keep the park open? And do you feel that the next generations are learning how important it is to continue to keep protecting the resources and animals of Madagascar?
Yes, I do think that those next generations, we've been doing a tremendous amount of education to the remote villages. And, all those kids, they know all about the lemurs, and they really love the lemurs in the rainforest. They've gone on rainforest camping. And yes, I do think that our education team is strong, and they're really doing a great job. And I think the villagers themselves, they've seen a great benefit. They have a lot more advantages than they did in the past. So they know that. The grandfathers and the fathers know that. So I do think that working with the communities has really worked well. And it's been fun for all of us. You have to realize that we have study abroad students. So all these kids go out into the village, and they work with the villagers too. And, they don't have TV out there. They can't, watch all these sitcoms and things, but instead they have our study abroad students, and they really enjoy joshing them and working with them and being entertained by them, I think. So it's a really good relationship where we appreciate that we're from two different cultures, but our goals are the same. We want to save those lemurs. We want to save and help the people out. And so I think everybody has enjoyed this interesting project.
There was a funny moment in the book where you explained some interactions between some of the villagers and some of the grad students who were traveling with you, and that you were asked by one of the villagers, is it true that if you dial this phone number, Domino's will bring a pizza to you?
That's right. They're always doing stuff like that, my students. Yes.
Another question that we received, Pat, is that as the first woman to win the Indianapolis Prize, what advice can you give to other women who are rising up behind you in this male-dominant field?
Yes, I think I think there's a lot more females, for one thing, which I'm really pleased. When I went to the forest with teams, and when I'm in my early part of my career, they were all men and me. And so it's really nice to see now that there's a lot more women in the field than there was before. But, you have to, I think everybody has to work hard. We all know that. But I think that you also have to remember to speak up for yourself. I think very often females, sometimes women, sometimes we are too polite, and sometimes it's better to, and men aren't actually. I mean, when you have a meeting still, if you actually keep track, this is kind of a private behavior thing, if you keep track of who speaks first and who speaks longest, it's almost always the men. So we have to get out there and get our voices heard, and so you can do that at any stage. Just start and push hard, and I think you'll get you'll make it. It's hard though, and you have to realize it's going to be a challenge. But of course, it's great because we have mentors now, and get a good female mentor, and even some of those male mentors are fine if they're on your side and are going to open doors for you. I think all students should realize that you really have to have people that are on your side. You can't do science alone. You have to have collaborators, you have to have mentors, and you have to have people that are going to go to bat for you. There's always letters of recommendation. Get out there. If you're really young, get out and do those internships and get your resume, just fully charged with things that you've already done, and then work hard to get where you want to go.
So a related question, but maybe the same things would apply, was for a person seeking to change careers and get back into science, what are your suggestions for professional development that will facilitate that transition?
Yes, I think when I was growing up, we were told there was only one career that you could do, and now we realize that no, you can switch. You can get back into doing something that you really want to do. And in order to switch into biology, you're going to have to. It depends. If you're a social worker and moving into biology, there's a lot more math than there used to be, and getting good skills like working in GIS or working in and even molecular biology requires different kinds of skills. I think it would be good to start out with a master's, but you can also just go straight for your PhD. There are a lot of programs out there, and you can write to me if you want to know more specific things. I think making that transition, you have to first write to people and get somebody that says, yes, I think it's a good idea that you go into biology. Do you want to come to my field site? Do you want to come to my lab? Let's talk. I think there are scientists out there that will give you the key to making that transition.
And Pat, our last reader question as we are about to run out of time is simply that we'd love to have an update on your daughter, Amanda, and your grandchildren.
Yes, Amanda. I just spent July 4th with Amanda. She is working at Woods Hole Research Center, at least she was. And with this coronavirus, she has been one of the people to actually lose her job. So I'm really sad to they are going to try to rehire her as soon as they can. She worked in a project in reforestation and climate change in the Congo, which was where she could use all her skills she had learned by going to high school in Madagascar how to speak French, and so that's also a good skill to have if you're going to want to work in the tropics. Learning languages is also a good thing to do. So anyway, Amanda has two wonderful kids. One's 17, Ariana wants to be a marine biologist, and Hassan is thinking about being a landscape engineer or a designer. Miguel, who is Amanda's husband and has been they've been together almost 20 years, is a ship captain, and he is working on being a ship captain, and that's a little difficult too when it's not the summer. So right now the family is kind of facing a crisis. I'm hoping that she will be able to get another job. She's an extraordinarily good manager and a good biologist and also a good field person. So we hope that her next step will be toward the tropics, maybe toward Madagascar.
You closed the epilogue of the book with the following sentences, which I think are very appropriate to repeat here. And you said, I've received many awards and had successes beyond my wildest dreams, but none of them compare to the moment when I showed my grandchildren the golden bamboo lemur. Safe, content, and the symbol of it all. And then you wrote the Malagasy phrase that means only together can we save the lemurs and the wildlife into the future. And final question for you, Pat. You mentioned that there are ways that those of us who are interested and able can help support the work that you're doing in this period when we can't unfortunately visit Madagascar. But if we are interested, how can we connect to you and to those opportunities to provide support?
Yes, well, certainly we have a website, and it's centerofalbio.org, and you can donate there. You can send a check to us, or if you want to, or donate online. If you want to get involved, just email me, and we can get you involved either by helping in some way, because everybody has skills that we need. And in this right now, we're doing all kinds of videos and virtual visit the rainforest. So perhaps you'd like to take a virtual tour of Madagascar. We can do that. That's on the website too. And we are taking virtual tours of our different departments in our, and that's about to start maybe in August by the time we get that going. But you can take a wildlife guide to Ranmafan, even when you're not in Ranmafan.
Well,
and I appreciate any donations that you can offer.
Dr. Wright, thank you so much for your time today. I know this discussion could go on and on, but unfortunately we are over our time. So Terry, I will turn it back to you to tell us what is upcoming with respect to the Indianapolis
Yes,
Prize.
so first off, thank you again, everyone, and Christa and Pat for participating today. We always love hearing from you, Pat. You're an amazing storyteller. I wanted to remind everybody, don't forget that you can meet Pat and the 2020 winner and finalists at Meet a Hero on September 25th, 2021. We'll be sending out lots of reminder emails so you won't be able to forget. The next big thing for the prize is the Indianapolis Prize book. It's going to be released this upcoming October, and it includes chapters written by every prize winner. So that includes Pat through 2018. And the foreword was written by Harrison Ford, who is the 2018 Indianapolis Prize Jane Alexander Global Wildlife Ambassador Award winner. The book is titled Saving Endangered Species, Lessons in Wildlife Conservation from Indianapolis Prize Winners, and it's available for pre-order on Amazon. So hope you guys are interested in checking it out. We really appreciate you participating today and look forward to future book clubs. So thank you so much and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.